Whatever she's having, we'll take 2 of those. I'm about to spoil her.
This is Final Cut Express day 1 of your tutorial. First thing I'm going to show you is how to import footage. So I want to import a folder of images. So I'm going to choose at the QuickTime Final Cut Express. I'm going to choose File, Import, Folder. I'm going to go to my desktop, Final Cut Tutorial Clips, select the Hawaii folder and say choose. That has a ton of pictures. I've selected it in there, and it's a lot faster than selecting files one by one. The next thing I'm going to do is grab the video clips. So I'm going to do File, Import, Files, because I only have like 2 to 3 files that I want to grab. So I'll go back to that same folder, and this time I'm going to get these 3 clips. I'm going to start off with clip 14, hold my shift key down, and then select all of them together and say choose. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on clip 1. If you'll notice, that does show up in what is called the viewer. That is actually what is currently on that video clip. If I click on the next one, then it shows me the next clip. Next clip. If I click in Hawaii Photos, notice everything is grayed out. By default, I need to click here so that they're no longer all selected. If I select on this Aloha, it's an actual image. Notice the images have the .jpg for JPEG extensions. So I'm going to go ahead and close this window out by selecting the red dot. Go back and double click clip 1, and I'm going to work with this clip. So if I get my playhead and scrub, I'm moving through the clip, which is known as scrubbing. It shows me currently what is on that clip. I only want to keep a certain part of the clip. But to start off, I'm going to show you the difference. I'm going to go ahead and drag the entire clip to my timeline. And then I'm going to render it. If you'll notice, it has this long red line. You need to render the file to mesh the sound and the video together. So in order to do that, you could go to Sequence, Render All, and choose both. Okay. The shortcut to render is Command A to select all of the clips in the timeline, and Command R to render. Notice this is taking a while. It's taken about 5 seconds. In all actuality, for my actual project, anything that's down here in the timeline, that would be what my actual movie is. But again, I don't want all of certain parts of this clip in my project. So what I need to do is go back to clip 1, which is here, scrub through it, go until the guy's about ready to let go. And at that point, I'm going to mark an end point. So if you hover over this, it'll show you mark in. You can do Control I or select the arrow and it will do a mark in. And then I'm going to go till he stops and he is not bouncing back up. And then I'm going to do a mark out. I'm going to take that, drag it to the timeline. Now I'm going to select that, Command A, Command R. Notice it didn't take very long. It was a lot shorter. Okay, this space between here, if I were to play at this point, press the space bar, it would be dead space, black. It's a gap. I need to close it. There's 2 ways. I can click here and then press delete on my keyboard, or I can control on my keyboard, right click and choose close gap. Alright. The next thing I want to do is I want to go to my Hawaii folder and I'm going to drag some of the photos to the clips. I'm going to go ahead and take multiple photos just so I can add more to my timeline. I'm going to click here, press delete to close the gap, and I have a lot more on my timeline. Notice I can't see the beginning unless I go like that. Okay, one of the tips with Final Cut is you need to left click and drag. That will make the clips larger, or you could move it over to expand it. It's not wanting to move. get it, drag it inward. Now these are really large clips. I'm going to drag it right to the right. That's will be as small as they can get. Okay, so you can move things around by left clicking and holding to expand the clips out. And you will need this in times when you actually need to adjust these bars to do fade downs. Same thing with sound, you'll need to adjust the sound. We'll cover that on another day. Okay, if I needed to minimize, I would do Command H. Command H will close it and go back to Final Cut. It will open it. If by accident you accidentally close the canvas, for example, and you need it back, the quickest way is to double click the sequence. Notice the canvas and the timeline both came back. Okay, you have these two toolbars over here. This is your toolbar. These are the tools that you need to work with the timeline. And this is your audio meter that shows you how loud your volume is. Often those get closed. So I'm going to close them out in order to reopen them. So I'm going to go up to Window, choose my tool palette, and Window, choose my audio meters, and they are back up. So if you ever close them, that's how you do that. Now, if I select this playhead on the timeline, notice as I scrub through, that's what's actually in my project. Okay, and now notice it is showing up on the canvas. I like to think of it a canvas you paint on a canvas, right? So your project is your artwork. So when you're working on a project, when you're done, you're going to make a movie file, and that's going to be your masterpiece. Okay, let's see. So the next thing that we're going to do, okay, in this section of the tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use the slicer tool, the pen tool, how to fade in, fade out, and add picture-in-picture and different layers, resize, and move photos. The first thing I'm going to do is we need to add additional video tracks. By default, Final Cut comes with video 1 and video 2. I'm going to go ahead and hold, left click and drag this line down. I'm going to click in this gray area right here, press my control key, and right click with my mouse. So control and then right click and add track. And I'm going to do control, add track, and then control, add track. I want to use 5 video tracks, and you'll see why here in a moment. On the first track, I'm going to go into the Hawaii photos, and I'm going to select this picture of this turtle, and I'm going to drag him to video track 1. Okay, the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to go and grab the state bird, and I'm going to drag him to video track 2. I'm going to show you something that might happen. Notice the playhead is right here. When I'm dragging my photos, I'm actually dragging them to the right of the playhead. If you have something below on the timeline, like this state bird right here, and then you drop it, it splits the clip. And you don't want it to do that. So I'm going to Command Z to undo, and then I'm going to drag the image after the playhead on the track, and then I can move all of these back when I'm ready. The next one I'm going to add is the coral with the waves, and I'm going to add one more photo, this photo right here. Okay, I'm going to drag the photos back. I'm going to have this one come in, have them come in at different times, which you will see here in a moment. And I'll have this one here, and I'm going to stretch the turtle out because the turtle is going to be the bottom layer, and I'm going to want him to show the entire time. Okay, Final Cut is like working with Photoshop. It works in a layer approach. So anything that's on the top layer, like this full picture, will cover this photo here with the coral, and this one, and this one, and this one. So as it plays in the timeline, you can't even see the layers below it. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to work, I'm going to work top to bottom. So I'm going to start off with this layer here. This little option here, you have image and then image plus wireframe. Image plus wireframe allows you to resize the image and spin it and do various different things to the image. If it's just selected to the actual image, then you're able to hold and drag, and you would hold and drag and place in the timeline. Okay, so I'm going to go back to image plus wireframe, and notice my cursor is a four-way, looks like a four-way cross. Then you go here, you have a little black crosshair. I'm going to left click and hold and drag inward and get the photo to a smaller size. I'm going to go place it in the top left hand corner. I'm then going to double click the next layer, and now notice you can see that photo, but you can't see what's behind it other than this photo. So I'm going to go and resize this one and place it in the other corner. Now, one thing you need to know about Final Cut is anything that goes outside of this green line will not be included in your movie, your final product. So any text or anything that goes over here will not show. So you need to be very careful. So if I were to move this here, I would not want it to go outside. So all of this would get cut off. So I would leave that there. So I'll go ahead and just place this back up there where I had it. Now I'm going to work on the third picture, and I'm going to resize it and place it over to the right. You can place it wherever you want. Double click the state bird, resize the state bird, left click, drag inward, and place it here in the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and play what I have right now so you can see what happens. So if you'll notice the photos, this bird, the state bird here, and the coral came in at the same time. For the tutorial, you'll have to make them come in at different times. So in order to do that, I could just slightly move this one over and leave them where they're at now, which they'll come in at different times, but notice how they just pop on the screen. And in order to make it look more professional, we would need to add a fade in and fade out of the images. So that will take us to our next tool, which is the pen tool. So on the bottom of your toolbar, you can select the pen tool. And then in order to see the lines, to be able to make the fade in and fade out, you need to come down here and select the toggle clip overlays. So I select that. And then I'm going to go ahead and start the fade in and out of the images. I'll start top layer to the bottom. Doesn't matter whatever order you want to work in. I'm going to left click to drop the first point, drop another point, and drop another point and another point. Notice they're not very far apart. I'm going to then left click and hold and drag it all the way to the bottom, and left click and hold this one all the way to the bottom. Okay, I'm going to do the next photo. Boom. Now, if I want to have a better fade in, I would add more dots. So let's look at these two photos. So you'll notice as I play how they fade in. If I wanted the fade in to take a little bit longer, I could add additional points, so 3, and then drag this down some, and then add another point here and drag this down some. So it would take the photo a little bit longer just to fade in and then fade down here. If you bring this line down here in the center, it makes the photo transparent. So let me show you. I'm going to go ahead and move the playhead over that. We're looking at this photo right here, and I'm going to get the selection tool, and I'm going to drag the line down. See how it's transparent? So if you want to make something look a little transparent, that's what you would do. But I'm going to leave it back up to normal where it was. Okay, so now let's look here at this longer fade in. So you'll watch it as it gradually comes in. So it takes a little bit longer. This one comes in a little bit faster. It's all according to what you like. What you don't want to do is, and I see this a lot, is to come here to add one dot here, and then one here in the center, and then one here at the end. Okay, and then you drag that line down, and you drag this. So now let's see what that does. Okay, we're watching this this going to be this photo right there. So now notice. So what happened there is it got really dark here in the center, but it was transparent the majority of the time until it got here. It didn't give a long enough time to take in the full color of the photo. So to fix that, I would have added 2 more points, brought this up to level out with the one in the center, and then of course it would fade in and then last longer on the screen and then fade down. And we're looking at that one in the corner. Okay. Lastly, let me go ahead and do these last two. And I'll show you the finished product. And then the last thing I'll show you is how to use the slicer tool. Actually, it's called the razor blade tool. Okay, a common mistake I see too before I show you that is not having a complete fade in and fade out. And let me show you that here in a minute. So let's run it. So you've got your picture in picture over a picture, and they're all coming in at different times and then fading down at the end. Okay, a common mistake that a lot of students do is, let me add just one more photo. And they'll come over here with their pen tool and they'll come in at a dot, like let's say not quite at the end, and then they'll do this. And then they'll go ahead and they'll do a fade down, or maybe they go to that point, and they don't go all the way down to the bottom. And so when you go, you can still see part of the scene. So let's see, even if I lower it down, it actually goes to black. But sometimes, a lot of times, you'll have an anchor point that's, I just added it, that may be like this, where it's up like this and over like this. And then you'll watch it actually will fade down all the way, but then it comes back up, or it's not quite faded down. So you always want it to show nothing on the screen. So you do want a complete fade to black. So this has to be completely down for your projects. Okay, another thing is the razor blade tool. This is great. You can actually come in and slice different pieces of an image, or it works also with sound. Um, it's useful when you want to get rid of certain sections in a clip. I'm going to close the gap. I can press my delete key or control right click, close gap. I can also move this up, and if I had any volume, I would see that as far as sound. So let me go and grab a clip. So I'm going to copy that, go back to the double click the sequence that I was working in, paste it, add this video clip. When I do add it, I just wanted to show you that it has a line as well, but it also has audio attached to it because a video clip has sound. So I could also work with my sound, and I can move this up and down, and I can also use the pen tool to do my fade in and fade out of music, which I will teach you when we go over sound. Here's just a quick tip. When working with clips, in order to add these anchor points using the pen tool, you might need to expand your clips to make them larger to be able to really work with them. So if you notice, I'm dragging all the way to the right. That's not a lot of room to click those little points on. Okay, so it's easier if you left click and drag to the right, and actually drag left and then move the slider in the center. It will make the clips larger where you can add the anchor points. Okay, so you need to get comfortable with using the slider, left click and right click to make the clips larger and smaller. So I'm just going left and right and then move in the center.